Welcome to another episode of Winning in Life Today. I'm so glad you decided to tune in. I want you to take this time to go to your social media accounts and let your friends know that it's time to watch Winning in Life Today. They can tune in to www.maxlifeitv.org. That's www.maxlifeitv.org. Each week, you have 3 opportunities to watch us right here on this station. That's every Tuesday at 5 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Wednesday mornings 6 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, and Saturday afternoons at 3 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. As I always like to say, I hope you tuned in expecting to receive something great. And if by chance you tuned in not expecting to receive anything at all, I pray that by the end of this episode, you will leave expecting nothing less than God's best for your life. I am so excited. Today, I have the awesome opportunity to interview someone that has traveled out of space, an astronaut. I want to welcome to Winning in Life Today, Captain Winston Scott. Welcome.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity to appear on your show.
Yes, sir. So I want to, get right into the interview because I know that some of the people watching, they would really like to know what your experience was like traveling out of space. So when you first found out that you were selected to be an astronaut and travel out of space, what was your reaction?
There are no words to describe my reaction. It was so exciting because I was in a group of a handful of people that was selected out of several thousand who applied. The application process has started a couple of years earlier. And then they narrowed the field down until they made the final selections. And I almost didn't apply at all, to be quite honest. I was talking about it one night and made an offhanded remark to my wife and another Navy buddy of mine that I always thought I might like to be a part of the space program, but this, that, and other. And they both looked at me and said, "You really ought to apply."
Wow.
And I lay awake all that night, the words playing around in my mind saying, "You really ought to apply." Went to work the next day, talked to my commanding officer, and he said, "You really ought to apply." I made up my mind I would apply one time. Mm-hmm. And lo and behold, over the next year and a half, my name kept staying in the mix at every cut. And I was selected. When I received the phone call, it was just so exciting. And that day was a life-changing day. Because to get to fly in space is just an amazing experience that only about 400 people in the history of the world have had the opportunity to do. So I've been very blessed to have done something very, very unique. And I'm always excited about sharing that experience with other people.
That is so wonderful. Now, I'm glad that you mentioned your wife because that's one of the things that I was wondering also. How did your wife feel about, you being selected as an astronaut and then taking on a mission to actually travel out of space? Were there any reservations? But it seems like there wasn't.
I think she was excited about it also. I mean, we had been together. Well, and as a matter of fact, in 3 days, we'll celebrate our 43rd wedding anniversary.
Oh,
so, anyway,
congratulations.
So we've been together all through my Navy career. So she's familiar with deployments and moving from place to place and so on. So she knows what that exciting life is all about. But this really stepped it up another notch. Okay. And I think she was very excited about it, and the children were excited. Our daughter at that time was in middle school, and when I told her that I was going to become an astronaut, I mean, the newspapers were all over us, and they featured the family in the newspaper articles and magazines and all that stuff. The first thing she asked was, "Are we going to be famous and rich like Michael Jackson and get a zoo?"
Wow.
Because Michael Jackson, as you remember, had all these animals.
Yes.
I said, "Sweetheart, I don't think we're going to be famous and get a zoo, but this truly is going to change your life." And it did. My wife was excited about it. The children were excited. The whole family. In fact, you begin to meet relatives that you didn't know you had. People all come out of the woodwork, so to speak. And but it's a wonderful experience. It's a wonderful thing that because people take to it and they want to be a part of it. And I'm happy that they are a part of it because it's something that you want to share with everybody, relatives and friends and acquaintances and children and adults and so on.
Right,
Yeah.
because I mean, how many people get the opportunity to know someone or even meet someone that has traveled out of space?
People really do relish that opportunity. I meet people on a daily basis. In fact, today I was at a ceremony and had people come up to me and say, "I just want to meet you and shake your hand."
Oftentimes when we are pursuing our dreams, we encounter many different challenges and obstacles that make us want to throw up our hands and say, "I'm done." But now is not the time to quit. I'm reminded of a story about a group of fishermen that toiled and worked all night long, and their work yielded them no increase or results. But in the end, they heard these words, "Launch out into the deep." I encourage you today to launch out into the deep. Launching out into the deep is symbolic of you changing your tactics and the way you do things in order to get the results you want. Launching out into the deep means sometimes you may have to enter into unfamiliar territory. Sometimes in pursuing our dreams, we have to dig a little deeper, go a little further, and work a little harder. You are a winner and not a quitter. It's time for you to launch out into the deep. Now, you mentioned your children, and it's just so amazing, the mind of a child to, ask the question, "Hey, Daddy, are we going to be famous like Michael Jackson and have a zoo?" So in my research that I've done on you, Captain Scott, I found out that as a young child, you were one of the first African Americans to integrate your high school. Can you tell us that experience and what was that like?
Yes, I attended segregated schools in Miami up through 9th grade. Mm-hmm. And in 9th grade, word came out, so to speak, that schools were going to be integrated, and the historically black high schools would be made into junior highs. Back then it was junior high school. Okay. And that the African American kids would populate the nearby predominantly white high school. So in 10th grade, my friends and I went over to Coral Gables High School, which was primarily white. And of course, it was a totally different experience. I remember the first time I set foot on that campus, it was so big. It felt like, to me, what a college should feel like.
Wow.
So compared to my small all-black school, going to the large predominantly white Coral Gables High School was a new experience. All the classrooms, the equipment, the facilities were just so much better and so much nicer. My main activity in high school was band. I was a good musician, so I was in the marching band. And when I went over to Coral Gables High School, Gables was so big, they had 2 bands.
Wow.
That's right, 2 bands. And there were over 100 people in each band. They had what they call the number one, the top band was called the Band of Distinction. And it was really one of the finest marching bands in the country. What was different, of course, was the overall culture. Yes. The culture was different. We were no longer in a black school, and the music we played was different. Mm-hmm. When I was at Carver, all black, of course, we played African-American music. We played soul music during the football games. Okay. Well, I went to Coral Gables, and we played rock music. We played the Beatles and the Rolling Stones. Mm-hmm. But it was good. It was a good experience for me, and I credit Coral Gables with giving me the background that I needed to attend Florida State University, which opened up the opportunities to me for naval aviation, astronaut program, and so on. Okay. So all things come together for the good.
I do believe that. Mm-hmm. I do believe that. So as a young man growing up, you integrated your high school. You went on to college, and I believe, were you on a musical scholarship?
Yes, Florida State University. As a matter of fact, that's the interesting story, because when I was getting ready to graduate, I was thinking, of course, I would major in music. Mm-hmm. That was I love music, and I was very, very good at it, very blessed with a music talent. And my band director, again, Mr. Ledoux, kept encouraging me to apply to Florida State University, one of the finest music schools in the country. Yes. Still is. Mm-hmm. I applied to Florida State, was not accepted.
Wow.
And I was ashamed to tell him that I wasn't accepted. So I stalled until I couldn't stall anymore. Finally told him I was not accepted. He made a phone call, and 3 or 4 days later, I received the card saying, "You are hereby accepted to Florida State University." So he went out of his way to get me into the university, which he did not have to do. And again, had that not happened, I doubt that I would have ever done the things that I've been able to do. So went to Florida State, into the School of Music, no audition or anything, accepted right into the School of Music on Mr. Ledoux's say-so. And began pursuing my music degree.
Wow. So if I can just pause for a second there, that's, gives validity to that saying that sometimes it's not about what you know, but who you know. But who you know.
That's right. Talk about what you know, but who you know. That's right. Absolutely.
So, going to Florida State, entering into their music program, and like I said, the different things that you experienced as a child growing up and integrating your high school. Did it ever enter your mind, imagination, or dreams that you would one day become an astronaut? Was that something even conceivable to you?
No, it wasn't conceivable. Now, if we back up to elementary school, let's back to segregated schools again. My elementary school, I attended Francis S. Tucker Elementary School in Miami.
Okay.
And one of my teachers in 5th and 6th grade was a guy by the name of Mr. Clark, Mr. Franklin Clark. Unfortunately, we lost Mr. Clark just about 3 months ago. Mr. Clark passed away. But anyway, Mr. Clark taught advanced accelerated math and English in 5th grade. And myself and a handful of other students were selected to be in accelerated math and English. Well, Mr. Clark did a whole lot of other things besides just math and English. He exposed us to many, many things that were going on in the world. One of them was the early space program. So he would bring in newspaper articles and magazine articles. There were no computers in school in those days.
Right.
And no televisions in the classroom. And we would read articles about the original Project Mercury astronauts and what they were doing in space. I was always fascinated by spaceships and rocket ships and airplanes, like most kids, especially boys. But I never thought I would do it. I tell my audiences sometime at that point in my life, talking about the space program was like talking about Batman on TV. It's cool, but I can't do it. I never didn't have the slightest inkling that one of these days I would become an astronaut.
Wow.
But I credit Mr. Clark because he planted that seed, I think, way back then.
Yeah, and that's just what I was thinking. The seed was planted.
The seed was planted.
And then it was able to come to full fruition.
That's right.
And here we are today.
And here we are today.
Don't be afraid to let go. It's time for you to stand on your own 2 feet and walk. Have you ever noticed that when a baby is ready to walk, the only thing that's holding them back is their fear of letting go? For so long, they've been dependent upon some type of support system to hold them up. And the thought of letting go is a scary feeling. It causes them to wobble. It causes them to be unsure and uncertain. Don't be afraid to let go. You can stand. Yes, you may fall on your first attempt, but that's okay. Your support system is still there. If it's truly a good support system, it will be there for you to pull up on and stand again. Let go. It's time for you to stand on your own 2 feet and walk into your destiny. So with the spacewalk, and I know some of these questions that I'm getting ready to ask you now may be very basic, and again, you've probably answered them 1,000 times, but did you see Saturn? Did you see Venus? Did you see Mars while out on your spacewalk?
You didn't see the other planets when you're out on a spacewalk.
Okay.
Because first of all, you're so busy. Second of all, when you're on a spacewalk, you have to have the lights on so that you can get your work done. Well, the ambient light from the shuttle itself obscures the stars.
Okay.
If you want to see stars and other planets, you have to turn out all the ambient lights. So let's back up. While inside the space shuttle on a number of night passes.
Okay.
And let's back up again. You go around the Earth every 90 minutes. So you've got 45 minutes of daylight followed by 45 minutes of sunlight over and over and over again. Yeah,
Wow.
you completely circle the globe every 90 minutes.
Okay.
Okay, when you're on the dark side of the orbit, if you turn off the lights in the shuttle and turn off the lights outside, the ambient light, and you're far enough around the Earth that the sunlight won't filter around, now you can see the stars and the constellations.
Mhm.
Well, I can remember a night pass looking out as we're moving around the Earth, and I could see Mercury over here to my right, and I could see Venus just a little closer,
Okay.
and then Earth, of course, was right beneath me. And then the moon was to the left. And as we were moving around the Earth, the alignment appeared to change. And for just one instant, it looked like they were all three aligned. Mercury, Venus, and Earth, all in a straight line, and then the moon over here. And then an instant later, they were out of alignment as we continued to go around the Earth. So
Oh, my
you
goodness.
see some absolutely phenomenal images from space. Everything is much brighter and clearer up
Okay.
there because you're not looking through miles and miles of atmosphere.
Mm-hmm.
We don't think about it down here because we spend our whole lives in atmosphere. But when you're in space, and it's so crystal clear, it's just amazing to you how things look.
Now, one of the things that I heard, and you were saying that, the atmosphere is crystal clear. I've heard people talk about space trash and space debris. What is that? Is there potential dangers of the space trash and debris? Did you come across that while you were out there?
There is debris in space. Most of it is natural, micrometeorites.
Okay.
And they're too small to see.
Okay.
Anything that's large enough to see, NASA can track it on radar and keep you away from it.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to get encountering of that stuff. On my first flight, we were given a maneuver to keep us away from an old satellite, an old dead satellite.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't see it with our eyes. They saw it on radar, and we maneuvered the space shuttle to stay away from it.
Okay.
There is some man-made debris up there. Occasionally things explode, and the debris remains in orbit for a while before the orbits decay and it disintegrates in the atmosphere. It's there for a while. So there is concern about space debris. It hadn't gotten to the point yet where it's a real big issue. The biggest issue is natural meteorites and micrometeorites in space.
So you mentioned about a old satellite or dead satellite. Are there any dangers of the old satellites that are no longer in use somehow entering back into the Earth's atmosphere?
Well, they do enter the Earth's atmosphere, but they burn up in the atmosphere, and almost all of it burns up. The few pieces that hit the Earth typically hit the Earth over water.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, remember, Earth is 3/4 water.
Right.
So when things re-enter, most likely they re-enter over the ocean. We never even see them here on land. And so when things are left up, at least on the American side, it's accidental.
Okay.
We don't leave anything deliberately. In fact, we bring trash back. We don't dump trash out in space.
Oh, now
we
that's
bring
interesting.
we bring waste material back. A solid waste comes back. Liquid waste, urine, can be dumped out into space. Urine, water dissipates, so it doesn't fall to Earth.
Okay.
When you dump it out, it just dissipates. Solid waste is placed into a storage area and brought back and disposed of the way you dispose of waste from a train or a bus or an airplane. You don't dump that out. Well, that's the solid. So we don't dump anything out in space that pollutes the environment.
Now, I was not going to ask this question, Captain Scott, but you brought this up, okay?
I'm guilty. I'm bringing it up.
So, one of those basic questions, but I'm
Yes.
quite sure everybody
wants to know.
How do you use the restroom while you were in space?
I always joke with the audience when I get that question, and I tell them, you know how we use the restroom, Reggie? Very carefully. But seriously, we have a toilet in space, and if you see it, you recognize it as being some sort of toilet, but it's not like the one you have at home because there's no water in it. Water floats in space. So the toilet bowl works like a vacuum cleaner, has a vacuum system on it. So if you want to urinate in space, there's a hose that comes out of the bottom of the toilet, and the hose, you figure funnel on the front of the hose. We have funnels designed to fit men and funnels designed to fit women.
Okay.
So you put the funnel on the front of the hose. You have to turn it on and check for suction. Suction's important, right? Then you anchor yourself in place because remember, you're weightless. You're going to float all over the place. And then you urinate into the funnel, and the vacuum system takes all that urine and places it into a storage tank.
Okay.
Now, if you want to defecate, obviously you have to sit down. Well, you have to strap yourself to the toilet. Otherwise, you float away. So you strap yourself to the toilet, and you put your feet into foot restraints to hold you in place. And then you have to turn the toilet on again. You check for suction.
Okay,
that's very
suction is important.
Suction is very important. And you have to open the toilet bowl up and so on, and then you defecate. And then the solid waste material is freeze dried and placed into a storage area. And it's brought back to earth and disposed of, as I talked about earlier. Then, of course, you have to clean up your body and clean your hands and clean the toilet and turn it off and so on. And it's quite a long process, and you do have to practice using the toilet so that you use it correctly. Also,
so I guess that is a part of your training here on Earth.
That's a part of your training here on Earth. That's right, practice using that toilet. And somebody on the crew, at least one person, has to be trained to repair the toilet. If it breaks, you have to fix it. And of course, the toilet is very important in space.
Yes.
So there's one astronaut who's trained kind of like a plumber. They go in and fix the toilet, and also to periodically ensure the filters are in place, because obviously in the storage area, you don't want that those germs filtering back up into the living quarters. So you have special filtering and ventilation systems to keep all the waste, the germs and the fumes from filtering back into the shuttle. So it's a very, very uniquely designed piece of engineering.
I'm quite sure. So you mentioned, you have to be strapped in. So does that apply to when it's time for you to go to sleep on the space shuttle, that you have to strap in as well?
You strap yourself down to sleep. Otherwise, your body would float all over the place. And what we typically do is use either sleeping bags or sleep stations. Sleeping bags, kind of like a camping trip. You take this soft bag and unroll it, and you can tie your bag off in the shuttle wherever you want. And space is cool. You can tie it either on the floor flat, or you can tie your bag along the wall or along the ceiling. It doesn't matter. There's no gravity. So you absolutely. Then you float yourself into the bag, zip yourself up, and the bag keeps you from floating all over the spaceship.
Now, was it difficult for you to go to sleep your first few days in space?
Yes, it's difficult sleeping in space. I think you're excited about being there, for one thing. And then you feel so weird because you can't lie down in space. There is no lying down. Your body cannot assume a lying down position because gravity, there's no gravity, and the fluids in your inner ear just sort of float around. And we perceive our orientation by the fluids in the inner ear. Just like if you're standing, you're sitting up. You know you're sitting up. You don't have to see it. You feel it. If you lie down, you know you're lying down. You feel it. If you stand on your head, you know you're standing on your head. Your body doesn't work that way in space because the inner ear gets confused. So you feel kind of strange, kind of weird about being there. That makes it difficult to sleep.
So, Mr. Scott, you've had many career transitions. You've been in the Navy, a part of NASA. You've gone to different universities, but now you're here at Florida Institute of Technology. Tell us, what is your current role here, and what is it that you're doing for the community of Melbourne and FIT?
Yes, my current position here at FIT is a Senior Vice President for External Relations and Economic Development. That's a long title, but essentially my primary duties now consist of representing the university out to the larger community. My first 4 years here at Florida Tech was as Dean of the College of Aeronautics. Because the university continued to grow, the president thought they needed a position of external relations like other large universities have. Because universities nowadays cannot afford to be little closed-in entities that no one knows about. You've got to be an integral part of your community. So what I do is I represent the president out into the community. I'm the chair-elect of the board of directors of the Economic Development Commission. I'm on the King Center board. I'm on the boards of several chambers of commerce. So that's the kind of work that I do. I mentioned earlier that I was at a groundbreaking ceremony this morning,
Mhm.
and I was on the program with the governor. Governor
Yes.
Rick Scott came down and made remarks. I made remarks right after the governor.
Mhm.
Well, by doing that, of course, Florida Tech now becomes an integral part of the community. The community knows who we are. They embrace us as a university. We embrace them, and everybody wins.
Okay, yes, that is awesome. And I'm glad that you mentioned everybody wins because earlier before we started recording, you talked about how the football team is getting off to a great start and they are 3-0.
We are 3-0. That's right. Yes,
So,
indeed.
as a part of economic development, are there any works in process or in progress as it relates to a football stadium for the football team?
A football stadium is probably a few years away yet. We're still we're in our 4th season now, which is, still brand new.
Yeah.
And we currently play in the Palm Bay High School Stadium. We've kind of adopted that now. It belongs to Palm Bay High, but it also belongs to Florida Tech
Okay.
Panthers. So we'll be there for a while longer. And then at some point in the future, I'm sure as our program grows, a stadium will be in the works.
Well, I'm quite sure the community is looking forward to it. This is for my game changers. When you are a game changer, people will do whatever they can to get you out of the game. They will lie on you, they will cheat on you, they will steal from you, they will try to hurt you, and they will try to hold you back. By any means necessary, they will do whatever it takes to get you out of the game. As a game changer, you must be able to stand in the face of opposition. The shepherd boy David, when he faced Goliath, he did not allow the size of the giant to make him doubt who he was in God. Although Goliath was bigger than David, he was not greater than David. The greater one lies within us. As a game changer, you were placed in the heat of the battle because you have the ability to change the outcome of the game. All you have to do is stand. The battle is not yours, it's the Lord's. He's already given you the victory. Game over. You win.